to make it possible. And so this is the important thing to realise too, is that there is the one way, and at some point you're going to have to be educated about that one way, right? Now, how humble you are will determine how quickly you'll receive that education and apply it. For some of you, you might not apply it for 1,000 years. And for some of you might try to do it tomorrow, right? It just depends on a lot of factors, but a lot of times too, it depends upon your humility and your desire for truth and your desire to live a life of love. And there's a lot of factors, but most of it is driven by desire as to how strongly you desire the thing. Make sense? Yeah. It's fun, baby.
Yeah, I think it's time.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Where are we at? So, we're at, yeah, Vijaya. Yeah.
So on that note, what I originally was going to ask this, but since you brought it up, I thought I should ask.
Yeah.
You use the word desire, which is another way for me to say longing. And what I have found is as I've longed for God and longed for my soulmate, the longing has kept increasing. One has fueled the other in a way that has allowed me to grow my desire significantly. And so I think the yearning or the longing to meet and be with the other half has been a very big pivotal part in my longing for God as well.
Yeah.
And so I wondered, is that fair to say? Longing being one of the ways, practical ways that desire manifests?
Well, you're using the words correctly, yes. And the feelings are not matching your words, though. So, and this is a problem with using words, is that we can use a word, but the feelings have to match the word. So that, and what I mean by that is God's not interested in how you define the word. He's interested in how it really is. So let's look at this longing process for your soulmate for a start. But let's look at that. What longings do you feel you've had, Vijaya?
The desire to know God.
Yes. Now,
so we're talking about God and soulmate here.
Yeah, let's break it into two areas. So one area is God, and the other area is soulmate, right?
And your point is really, isn't it, that your longing for one has fueled your longing for the other?
It's actually allowed me to stay in the longing. What has happened is I noticed that and I still have a lot of hang-ups about being vulnerable over,
Are you with your soulmate?
Sorry?
Are you with your soulmate?
No, I am not with my soulmate. I know who he is, and I have a relationship with him. It's not romantic, but...
Are you sure you know who he is?
I am sure. Unless, I guess your question is saying I'm not sure. Okay.
Well.
So go where you're going to go, Jay, because that's going to help, isn't it?
What are you looking for from your soulmate?
Nothing actually at this moment. Just share
not
myself.
True.
I went through the gamut.
Yeah. When you say you went through the gamut, you haven't processed the gamut emotionally yet, so a lot of what you're saying is not true. But go on.
Because I must be so good, I must be doing such a good sell job on myself that
Well, sometimes you are, and most people do.
Yes.
This is what I'm pointing out.
Yes, that's what.
Important to point this out in both your relationship with God and with your soulmate. What is your motive for both relationships? And this is where it requires a lot of self-honesty, Vijaya. It's like the average person doesn't understand their own motives very well at all. And particularly when it comes to relationships. So, and one of the main reasons why we don't is we don't see the interaction between what we classify as our longings, our passions, with our addictions. We interpret addictions as passions and longings, which are often not the case. very frequently, right, and not the case. Addictions are never longings. But the average person goes, well, I feel like I really want this, I really long for this, is how the terminology they use. Not understanding that actually there's addictions that are causing you to feel that way rather than actual longings. Okay? So it's very important with both our relationships, because remember, these are soul relationships. These are the two primary soul relationships. This one is an actual internal soul relationship. It's not even really a relationship, actually. Technically, you are the other person already.
You read that in your thing.
So it's not even really a relationship, right? It's a design. You could say a design feature, as you could call it, right? So that and that, though, are both driven by a motive. Now, that motive can either be addictive in nature or a pure passion. Right? Frequently, though, we like to tell ourselves it's a pure passion when actually it's an addiction. And frequently, we want to choose, particularly when it comes to this person, who they are. Frequently, that is the case. So, what's our motive? So what I'm encouraging you to do is to analyse your motive to be with your soulmate. What's your motive? Can you feel your motives? Is this a good question for everyone here? Those of you who believe you're longing for your soulmate.
Well, I went through the part about being lonely, about wanting a companion.
Okay, yep, so loneliness can be a motive. Now that's quite obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that how I spell it? No. Loneliness, that is, isn't it? Is that better?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So loneliness certainly is and you know that's an addiction, right?
Yes.
That drives an addiction. So that's quite obvious.
Yes.
Isn't it, that that's an addiction, and so therefore not a longing.
Correct.
Right? And by the way, you can have that same feeling for God, can't you?
Yes.
But you don't want to be lonely anymore, and you just want. And so again, it would be an addiction you would have with God as well. Yeah. Yep. Other one you mentioned.
Wanting love, wanting to be loved.
Wanting to be loved.
Yeah.
Be loved. Okay. Yeah, people say a lot, don't they, that love is either a necessity, or they say it's a, what's another word people use for it? Like it's a need, that everyone needs to be loved, right? And it's true that we've been designed to be very responsive and sensitive to love. That is very true. But there's a difference between neediness and longing. See, true love wants to give itself as a gift to the other, doesn't it? Rather than get something from the other. Yeah? So to be loved is actually an addiction. To love another, well, that depends on what you're trying to achieve through that love as to whether it's an addiction or not. Right? So you can actually have a desire, like I can have a desire to love Mary and think I'm passionate about it, but actually it's because I want something I want in return from her. And I can also have a desire to love Mary that is based upon an addiction I have. Right? In terms of I'm addicted to even just pleasing a woman. And so I meet Mary and I think she's a lovely woman to please. And she'll accept me pleasing her, so that's what I do. Yeah. So can you see that's also
Yes.
a tainted longing, isn't it? It's not a longing anymore, it's just an addiction. Yeah. Okay, so what we need to do is be very careful about a number of things. Now, you say you've met your soulmate. There's 3 or 4 things that could be happening here, isn't it? Firstly, you could have met your soulmate. Secondly, the person could be the person you idealise as your soulmate. Thirdly, the person could present themselves with emotional injuries that you like based on your addictions, and that's why you believe you're a soulmate. Fourthly, a group of spirits around you could have chosen him for you, which you're very prone to have happen for you in your past. And they could have chosen you for you based on what you idealise and also based on their selection. Now, any one of those things could be happening, and often even more things than that can be happening. You can even have spirits setting you up with somebody in order to attempt to, at some point in the future, have a sexual relationship with them. They can even change your feelings. In other words, they can even do things like this. If you have a certain set of emotional sexual injuries, they can make you feel sexual feelings when you're in the presence of a person that they want you to be interested in. They can even do that if you have certain sexual feelings that are not healed. All right? So if you look at all the things that are possible, can you see you'd have to be very circumspect, depending on your condition. You'd have to be very circumspect about what's actually happening. Now, where do you assess your condition to be? Your spiritual condition.
Is that a question for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but that's why your being here has been tremendous. Just in the last 24 hours.
You've sort of had to reappraise?
A huge shift. I can't even begin to tell you the level of shift that's happened inside.
Yeah.
It's like a fog lifted, and God is just so much more real than last week, for instance.
So where do you reckon you are?
And soulmate-wise also, obviously, the one thing I do know is...
You're avoiding this question.
Sorry, what happened?
You're avoiding the question.
Oh, okay.
I've just asked you a very...
So my soul condition, I'm not certain of where it is, but I have worked through a lot of addictions on this. I've listened to every one of these lectures carefully and on notes with that.
Yeah, but you've forgotten what I said to you last week.
Yes, that's true.
I said you're very much in your mind still.
Yes.
Yeah, but
yes,
go on.
Very much,
Go on.
very
Where
much
do you
so.
think?
Very much so.
Yeah.
So from a soul condition perspective, obviously I feel like I have some clarity on certain issues.
Yes.
Particularly when it doesn't involve myself.
Still not answering my question.
I don't know.
He's
You're giving me
asking for a
background.
number. He's
I'm
asking
asking
for a
for
number.
what sphere you're in.
Yeah.
What sphere do you believe you're in?
I thought at least out of the hells, like mid-first sphere.
Yeah. Now remember I said that most people don't meet their soulmate to the fifth sphere.
Yes, I've heard you say that many times, that you know who your soulmate is by the fifth sphere. So then I'm going, well, how come I know for sure when I'm clearly not there? And I've asked that question many times.
Yeah. So that's a valid question.
It's a good question to ask.
But very, very important to ask. Yeah. Okay. Shall we ask our spirit friends where you are? They don't like doing this, by the way.
No, and Mary doesn't like it either.
No, Mary doesn't like it either, so Mary's probably not going to channel it. But I'm okay with it. Well, I'm okay saying the truth is the best way to put it. The reason why it's very important for you to be accurate in self-assessment. Does that make sense? And there are many addictions you're yet to work through with the opposite gender and also with your own gender. You displayed some of them last week with Mary with the same gender, and then you also have displayed some with me in your questions through the last 2 weeks with the opposite gender. And many addictions still to work through. You're correct in saying that you're still in the first sphere. Now, bearing that in mind, and I've said that the average person won't meet their soulmate to the fifth sphere, or won't know who their soulmate is until the fifth sphere. What do you think you might need to learn about between now and that sphere condition? What might you need to learn?
about myself.
About yourself, yes, about yourself. This is very, very important. Very important. Remember, the soulmate attraction is based upon the personality of the individual, right? Not based upon what the individual believes their personality to be. You follow me, Jay? So what things do you think you would need to do to actually know who you are? Is the question I'm asking.
Follow my passions.
Okay, now let's look at that first. My passions. Do you believe you're following your passions now?
No, not all the way.
Okay, but you do believe you're following some of them, don't
Yes,
you?
I am.
Yeah. How many of your things you think are passions are things you were taught to do in your childhood? So in other words, did you even have a passion to be a doctor?
No, not at all.
No. Interesting. And yet a lot of your life is actually surrounding that, should we call it, job, surrounding that vocation. So interestingly enough, what caused you to want to be a doctor? Can you remember?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
a childhood boyfriend who wanted me to be a doctor. It was crazy but true. Yeah.
Yes, okay. No, that's not crazy. No.
People have pursued things in their
have
life
pursued things for far less reasons.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not crazy. But that is true, right? So it was actually your desire to please a male that led you down that path. You follow me? So and this now has become a large portion of your life. You think about percentage of time that you do it? In terms of your life, how much percentage of time is that?
About 40%.
Yeah, so that's a large percentage of time, isn't it? 40% of your life is done pursuing a vocation that you were actually encouraged to have from a male. Do you follow me? So the man believed that's what you should do. And so you're dedicating 40% of your life to something, a man who's now not even in your life. I told you it was good for you. And he's not even in your life now.
Yes.
And you're still doing it. You follow me? So now, that's a lot, isn't it? If you think about that, that's quite a lot.
Yeah. And a lot of your life would have been dedicated. There would have been times in your life where
100% almost.
100% of your time.
You obviously had to go through the whole
Training.
education process, which is very time-consuming for a doctor. The whole process of training, very time-consuming for a doctor. Did you do a residency or anything like that?
Yeah. Residency fellowship.
Whoa, that's full-on time-consuming for a doctor. So now it's 40%, but historically it was even far more, wasn't it? Yeah. And yet it was all suggested by a man. And you're not even sure whether that's a passion of yours.
Oh, it is a passion now, but when I went into it originally, it wasn't. I would not have dedicated it just for that sake.
Well, is it a passion connected to your personality, or is it a passion connected to your desire to please a man?
A passion connected to my personality. I genuinely like people. I genuinely...
You like people.
Yes, I don't disagree
That's not
with
being
that.
a doctor, though, is it? That's people.
There's a lot of ways you can like people.
I genuinely, in the human body, the passion for the human body.
Yes, but I love the human body too, but I'm not a doctor.
The workings of the human body.
Yeah.
Right.
Physiology of
Fair enough.
I mean, far more than my colleagues do, actually. I look at a lot of my colleagues.
Fair enough. Can you see what you do even in the conversation? There's a temptation, and this is why I'm bringing it up, Joe, and it's an illustration of all of you.
everyone has.
There's a temptation for you to justify to self every decision you've ever made. There's a reason why we do that, is because we don't want to feel any disappointment or sadness about the past decisions we've made. And so what we want to do is we want to reinforce the decisions to ourselves so that we can feel better about things, and rather than avoid the pain of coming to know that it maybe not is even your passion at all. Do you follow? Now, this is just one area of your life. We haven't even talked about your personality yet. So what is your personality?
Definitely love music.
That's
you
not
said as a
personality.
character.
That's not personality.
I agree.
Love music is something you can develop. So that's not personality. Okay, let's put it over there.
I guess I'm assertive.
Assertive, let's put that over there. That's not a personality trait.
Now it's...
Okay.
You told us there's no words for personality.
Well, this is what I'm saying, right? Remember, so what you're saying is that you told us there's no words to define my personality. That's what I'm saying. But you see, the average person doesn't think that either. They're thinking, no, my personality is I'm a strong person. This person, I'm an assertive person. I love music. This is me. This is who I am. And I'm going, no, God designed every single one of her children to love music. Every single one of you, at some point in your future, is going to love it. Right? God designed every single one of her children to love art. Every single one of her children to love science. Every single one of her children to love chemistry. If God didn't design you that way, He would have designed you unequal. You understand? And He designed you equal with everyone else. And to do that, He had to design you with the potentialities and the capabilities that are the same as everyone else. But He didn't design the personality the same. Because equality is not determined by personality. Right? So He didn't design that the same. So I ask about personality. Persons, this is something everybody does with me, right? They list all these different, things that they think are their personality, but actually they are character traits, things they developed. And for the most part, the average person has not even discovered their own personality. And usually the older they are, the worse it is, because the older you are, you've lived in a facade-based or a life that's been dictated by others to a large degree for a long period of time. And as a result of that, you've become more distant from personality over that period of time. So what you end up doing in that space is that you end up convincing yourself that the character traits are your personality. And so, this is the reason why it takes to the fifth sphere to find your soulmate. And the reason why is because most people have never engaged their personalities for their entire life on Earth, ever. That, in fact, most people hate their own personality while they're on Earth. Right? They haven't come to love it at all. Now, because of that, remember that the attraction between the two halves is fundamentally a personality attraction. Follow? Where we have the same personality at the soul level. But if I'm convinced that I love all these things, and Mary convinced that she, and when I met Mary in this life, she was convinced she loved a whole heap of other things that are different to the things that I love, and we're both totally convinced we love the things we love when we meet. You follow? Now, if it so happens that Mary loves the things I love when we first meet, well, that's a very amazing coincidence, isn't it? If you think about the billions of parents there could be on the planet, and the billions of experiences, literally infinite experiences there could be, for us to have very much same personality is like... Character is even unusual, but let's say it happened. It still doesn't mean we have the same personality. Right? And unless I have learnt how, and usually this is what I find with God, is that God teaches you how to understand yourself, your personality. Unless I've defined my personality and discover it, then and be it, I've got to be it too, that will enable the other half to recognise it when she sees me or he sees me, right? And honestly, if you're the person doing it first, they will probably recognise you before you recognise them sometimes, right? Because they're not doing it. yet. And so it's hard. And unless you're really sensitive emotionally, you can't even feel what their personality is. All you see is their character, their character traits, and that's all you see. Unless you've developed yourself well and truly into the fifth sphere, you won't even be sensitive enough to notice the difference between a person's character and their personality. And the fact that I'm saying this to you and listing these things is indicating that you haven't done it yet. So if you haven't done it yet, how can you say definitively who your soulmate is?
You cannot.
You can't. Now, spirits might tell you that this guy is. Some of those spirits might actually be right. You don't know at this stage. There's a strong feeling inside of you that he is. Isn't there? If we've got to be honest about that, there's a strong feeling inside. But that could be because you have very strong codependent addictions that match his addictions. That could be the strength, or it could be the spirit-involved strength. And until you know your personality properly, you will not be able to determine it. Now, that's soulmate. So I suggest to you that you give up the idea that you know who your soulmate is. And instead, find out who you are first. And live that person first. Now, God is going to help you do that. And this is the beauty of having the longing for God. As long as that longing is pure and sincere, and we were thinking next week actually that we might actually talk about what it means to be sincere. So that you can sort of grasp the full concept of what sincerity actually is at an emotional level. But unless your longing is pure and sincere, even the feelings you're feeling from God could also be from a spirit. Because the spirit says, I see you longing for God, but God's not giving you any feelings. But if I give you some feelings, then you'll feel encouraged to long for God more. Now, this is also very common. This happens all the time too. The measure of whether the longing for God is actually working is the change in your condition as others feel it, not as you feel it. The reason why it's not as you feel it is because initially you will probably not feel it. Right?
Can you say that again?
The reason why it says others feel it is because initially you probably won't feel it, because you're insensitive when you begin, and therefore unable to feel oneself. And there may be other people you meet who are a bit more sensitive, and they see, oh, you've made some changes, and they feel you've made some changes, right? Eventually, the strength of it will be that you feel it. Right? In that process, he's also going to try to expose to you your personality. It's going to help you with that. In the process of helping you with that, you will come to understand your personality and eventually come to deal with all the reasons why you don't want to be that person. And one of them happens to be for you, Vijay, the man's influence to become a doctor is one of the reasons why you're not being the person God created you to be. And at this stage, you don't understand how powerful that influence has been on your entire life, right? And all the different ways in which it's affected you, one way or the other. You don't understand the nuances of each way it's affected you at this point. You will come to discover it as you get closer to God, right? So we need to talk about pure and sincere desire. What I notice in you is you have a longing for truth and you are brave. And when I say you're brave, you want to share the truth you discover with others. And you're not too afraid of doing that. The average person is very afraid of doing that. The average person hears the truth, and we were listening to, I think it was your experience, was it this today, about Wendy's experience about Baha'i faith, and you were in the Baha'i faith, and there was somebody else in the Baha'i faith, and you didn't even know she was like listening to divine truth.
It took her a lot
It
of
took her
courage
a lot
to
of
tell you
courage
that
to even
after
build
a
up the
long
courage to tell
time.
her. That's not how it is for Vijaya. Vijaya is, I hear it, I'm telling it. You know what I mean? That's one of your, you know, really it's a very good thing about your character. Because bravery is something you develop, right? Yeah, so it's a very good thing about your character. And as a result, these two things are leading you to more truth and leading you to more experiences, which is very good, right? But there is one major Achilles heel Vijaya has, and you know what it is. It's your...
Humility? My intellect, yes. Oh boy, yes. I started in medicine at 16 and...
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's...
yeah. That head is really working hard, right? Yeah. Yeah, you are very intellectually dominant to the point of suppressing quite fundamental emotions. Dominant. Very intellectually dominant. And that is going to be something... At the moment, you're using your intellect to determine a lot of things, right? And you can see why, because you've had a history of using it all the time for everything. Every decision in your life, every choice you've made, all your work day is engaged with this, what's become a very powerful intellect, to the detriment of your feelings. Make sense? To the detriment of your feelings. And until that changes, you're going to try to use your intellect to solve every problem, even the problems with connecting to God. And that's the thing you're going to have to address in your life, right? You address that one thing, which is going to be tough, by the way. It's not going to be as easy as anything else you've addressed, actually, up until this point, right? And the reason why is because it's become so dominant, because you've used it all your life and you actually love it. And there is a strong feeling in you that it calms everything else down. Your intellect is you could say, a support for you. You see it as a support for you. Very hard when you're in that place to allow the emotional dominance. Very hard. So it's going to be a difficult process. And that will change how much of God's love you can receive by a long way, and also will help you discovering your personality. And the reason why I've suggested those things to you is because these things many of people need to do. And can I also say, many of you men in particular are also intellectually dominant, right? Now, Vijaya has had a leaning towards a male's way of doing things for a long time. You know that, right?
Yes.
You almost look up to the male way of doing things. And you almost see the female way of doing things as actually a weakness almost, sometimes. And this is something that's going to have to change, because you've disconnected yourself from what I would classify as strong, feminine qualities that have been suppressed throughout your life. Yeah. If you are not the feminine expression of your soul in its pure state, can you see? It's going to be very hard to attract your soulmate. So one of the beauties of being feminine, masculine, is that I can be the masculine expression of our soul. Mary, in her form, is the feminine expression of our soul. And I will be ultra attracted to the feminine expression of our soul. And Mary will be ultra attracted eventually to the masculine expression of our soul. Oftentimes Mary's been attracted even, and she didn't want to be, but she is. Does that make sense? So once you allow these things happen, it's sort of like, this is what happens. Now, if you follow the path of what I've just said, then eventually you will know who your soulmate is, but I would not at any point of time before then try to convince yourself that it's someone other than you don't know. You follow?
Thank you. That's really
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. Because what you're doing when you convince yourself you do know when you're in the first sphere, you're actually not doing this personal work to understand and grow your own personality to know, and you're going to be very, very tempted to constrain your personality to meet the goal of that person.
I actually noticed that already happening. So
Yeah. This is why I raised it, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
No, that's not right.
Yeah, not right. And what that does is, see, if you are your true personality, he won't be able to help himself, right? But if you manufacture one to suit him as he is now, because you believe he is, can you see that can be largely to the detriment of both of you, whether you're soulmates or not.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's quite dangerous to do what you're doing for your soul. Make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask on the channeling yesterday. There was a lot of people in pain yesterday.
Yes.
And the pain was very severe. I went home with a lot of pain.
Yes.
And I felt there must be a lot of Hindu spirits who were around, who were part of getting that realization. And,
Yes, but the group that we channeled didn't contain many Hindu spirits, so a lot of these are with you. Yeah, but what we said to this group of spirits do apply to those too.
Yeah, today sure, but yesterday also I felt a pain, a lot of pain. Today definitely I had trouble staying awake, which I never had in your talks.
Yeah.
So I felt a lot of, and that was interesting because reincarnation is never a belief that I even entertained,
Yep.
even when I lived in India. So I don't have any personal relationship to that belief. But
Yep.
clearly I may have ancestral spirits who...
Yes.
Yeah.
Who do put a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And anybody who's lived in India would know that ancestral spirits are honoured, and they also generally put a lot of pressure. And also, even the family who's alive, also, as you know, puts a lot of pressure.
Oh, yes.
That they, and of course, when they pass, they continue with that pressure, and it's huge. Like, and oftentimes, the kinds of pressure many people in the US experience are more to do with their addictions, right? But in countries like India, a lot of the pressure is more to do with family addictions,
Yes.
yeah, than other spirit addictions.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, you do have these spirits with you, and yes, there are certain emotions you have which you haven't dealt with yet that cause the attraction and also cause the suppression of self. The key is to work through those things, and then those feelings will be relieved. At the moment, you sort of treat it as if it's their problem, but it is there's certain emotions you have which are causing the problem for your own body when they come. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No worries. Well, guys, it's the end of the day.